your life.
Alright. Let's do the bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan haTorah. Amen. Alright. Let's go to Ezekiel. Again, we did 17 years. 17 was a whole bunch of trees and all types of funny imagery. And we're going to go into some more in chapter 18. Alright?
17 years. So, when Joseph was running the pit, 17.
Wow, chapter 17 of Joseph.
I was just saying, you said 17.
Joseph's everywhere.
No, man, 17 is every week.
Let's see when I start talking about this. Right, let's go to chapter 18. The word of Adonai came to me. What does it mean that you keep quoting this proverb in the land of Israel? When parents eat sour grapes, their children's teeth are set on edge. What does it mean? Listen carefully. The parents eat sour grapes, the children's teeth are set on edge.
What to do with their upbringing?
Parents receive false teaching, it's going to affect the children.
Not so much. They're the ones that eat the fruit. Yeah, right. So if you eat something sweet, do your children walk around going, no. Right? So it's basically what he's saying is that, now remember, he's going to be dealing with people that are dealing with exile. And you will be sitting there and you will be asking the question, has God now forgotten us? We're sitting in Babylon. Why are we here? Why are they there? Because of the sins of who? The forefathers, their fathers that have gone out before them. And now they're sitting there having this question and now like, okay, now what? Am I being judged because of the sins of the fathers, my forefathers, or am I being judged for my own sin? Now, we've got both counts of what is biblically correct on this, right? Okay. Let me read a little bit into it and as we start to see where I'm on. As I live, says Adonai Elohim, I swear that you will never again quote this proverb in Israel. Look, all lives belong to me, both the parent's life and the child's life are equally mine. So it is the person who sins himself who must die. Okay. So, but we have something in Torah that it says the sins of the father will carry on into the third and fourth generation. And the blessings of the parents will carry on for many, many, many more generations, right? So we have that in our basis when the Ketubah was given, the Torah was given. So now, is God contradicting himself here? No. Okay, so what does it mean if the sins of the fathers will be passed down from generation to generation, 3 or 4 generations?
It means if they don't follow Quran, they don't love God.
But it doesn't say that. It says the sins of the father will carry on to the generation after generation to generation. So the father's sin will affect the child. Is that saying that God uses the sins of the parents to punish the children? Kids, let me ask you something. Are you paying for the bad choices your parents make? Trick question. Yes, no? Are you receiving the benefits of the good choices that they have made? Okay, so why is it the same? Let me put it to you in a way that begins. Now we see that this thing, now God's saying, no, look, I punish each person for their sin. But the consequences of your sin might carry over from one generation to the next. That's a different thing. Right? If you're being judged for your generation, now let me put this back into context with Babylon. Where was God when they were in Babylon? With them. So did God leave them? No. He went with them. The generation that was judged is now in exile. The children that are coming up in Babylon are still suffering the consequences of what their parents did wrong, but yet they are being blessed in Babylon. How do I know that? Was Daniel punished the whole time he was in Babylon? Was he beaten senseless at that time and told he was useless because he didn't listen to God? No, he was raised up, right? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, same story. We have many guys that were lifted up in Babylon because God was with them. And they were going to use, God used people like Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to show the Babylonians who was God. Okay? So he was with them even in exile. But the consequences of the sins of the fathers were still evident. Why are we not in Israel? Purely because our grandparents and our great-grandparents have got problems. They didn't listen, they sacrificed their other children, they didn't worship the God, and now we're sitting in Babylon because of it. Okay? You understand the difference? Right. So if you choose to sin, or if your parents have chosen to be one way, and you choose to walk with God, you might still have the consequences of their bad choices. Right? Your parents drink too much, you grew up in a house where people drink too much, there's a few of us that have that example in our lives, and now you come in, you choose to follow God. Is he still punishing me because my parents drink too much? No. Did I grow up in a household that was completely idyllic because, or did I have consequences of what happens when people drink too much booze in my childhood? Absolutely. Alright? But my children are not going to know that because we've made a change. Okay? You guys understand the difference? Alright? We're getting to the space and very much in spiritual warfare ministry idea, we get stuck on this thing called generational curses. Now, generational curses will say that if someone opened up a door to some demonic activity, your grandparents read tarot cards, possibly, okay, and they use those things. Now, your parents didn't do that, and you didn't do that. Is God going to judge you for what your grandparents did? No. Does it make for a happy, loving environment? No. Well, we have any shalom in our house because we're looking for other things to answer what God is and who God is using different cards and other divinations. No. We also need to be very careful because we get to the stage where we go, all right, the sins of your parents, therefore, because they chose to spurn God, that takes away your choice whether or not you should follow him or not, right? Your parents and you're same in the same bloodline, you're same in the same blessing or curse line. Therefore, their choices are your consequence. Does that sound wrong to you?
Yes.
But yet, we teach, in many cases, that if I do something wrong, I've opened up a doorway and it's carried on generational cursing, and God does not have the power to save me because of something my grandparents did. Okay? You need to understand something. We start to make the blood of Messiah, or Teshuvah in its fullness, make it null and void with statements like that. If you are a new creation, if you were baptized and you took Yeshua and you said, I no longer want to be that guy, anything, if anything that was holding on to you has not been gone because the person you were is no longer there. Yes? Well, we hope so. That person gets crucified on a tree with Yeshua, he dies. You become something new. All of a sudden, you start acting differently. You start sounding different. You start questioning things that you used to do. And all of a sudden, when you go through these changes, you don't recognize you anymore. But is it an everyday choice?
Yes.
Absolutely. Because why? You can quickly revert back to the way you were or the way the world wants you to operate like that. I can quickly go back into a pub And if Nick and I ever drank together, there would have been problems because yeah, for many reasons, we would come back on Monday. Right?
From Vegas.
Yeah. Right? There would be a whole bunch of issues, but we know the people we were, and we chose never to become those guys again. And we ask God to change us and save us from ourselves. And slowly but surely, the things that were difficult for us to say no to in the beginning are now no longer difficult. Staying out of a pub was a big thing for me. It was an active decision every day. Because that's where we used to go when we had their business meeting. That's where I used to go and hang with my parents. That's where we used to go and relax. But I made a choice not to put the pub because I could not control myself. I didn't trust myself in that situation. So I never put myself in that situation until 6 months, 8 months, came along by, and then all of a sudden the pub didn't bug me no more. I've never had that hole. What changed? God made me stronger. He changed me. The way I thought. What I thought I needed. What I desired. Those things changed in me. But I needed to ask how I could change that in me. And the blood of Messiah can nullify not only my personal choices on the way I think I need stuff. It can change me. But it can also nullify any bad decisions that were there before. And at the same time, I can sit down and I can look at it. Yes, maybe my parents did do 1 or 2 things wrong. And they did 100 things right. Am I my parents? No. Does God judge me separately from my parents? Yes. Do I still have the memories or the warnings of what I saw when people did it wrong? Absolutely. Don't sit here thinking that you don't have a future because your parents chose not to walk with God. Don't sit here thinking because they worship whatever. This is an important thing. Regan said something very, very profound. He says, in his viewpoint, and I agree with him, it doesn't matter what you call it. Whether you're satanic, whether you're a cultist, whether you're atheist. If you do not believe there is a God, if you worship money, if you believe in Hasatan himself and worship him, it's the same thing. You're all part of that kingdom. Right? Whether you believe God doesn't exist or whether you believe Satan is God, you're still in that category, yes? You can call it whatever you want. You're not gods. And when you choose to become gods, you're definitely not any of that. That's where the change happens. You make an active decision and every day you start to do it. So these guys are sitting in Babylon, looking at their situation. We're in Babylon. God has surely left us. The temple gets destroyed in it's destroyed in 586. God doesn't love us anymore. Why would he keep a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the seed of Yaakov? Why would he keep that covenant if we never kept it? Why would he care about you if your parents never cared what he thought? God is the creator of every being. Everything he created. He chose your height, your hair color, your eye color, your bulb. He chose everything to the detail. If you know nothing else, remember this. God decided the world wasn't complete until it had one of you. He was with him in captivity. And he says, I will judge you for your mistakes, and I will bless you for your choices. I'm not going to punish you for that of your family. And he goes into an interesting picture here. Consider someone who is righteous, who does what is lawful and right. Now what I want you to do is I want you to frame this in Ezekiel's mindset. Remember, he thinks like a priest because he is a priest. So you're going to hear a lot of Leviticus right now. He doesn't eat on the mountains or raise his eyes towards the idols in the house of Israel. Okay, so he doesn't eat on high places. Okay? One of the problems about not eating on a high place is that you don't know. You have meat sacrificed to idols and you don't know if the blood was let out properly, right? How do you drain blood? when you're killing an animal next to a tree. Think of the practicality side that's coming from a guy who wants to do temple worship. Okay? This is acts of worship, and he's showing you uncleanliness in it. He doesn't defile his neighbor's wife or touch a woman during her time of menstrual impurity. Now let's just stop there for a bit. Remember in Leviticus we deal with the triangle. What is unclean, what is clean, and what is holy. Right? Something that is unclean, depending on the object, can become clean. Okay? Can be purified. Some things, animals that are unclean, cannot become clean. Okay? A pig doesn't all of a sudden become good for you like a cow. Okay? So we have certain things that are a state of uncleanliness, and that tells you what? Things are broken. God didn't run around going, yes, I think I'll have unclean things to test you. Right? So he wants to show you there's a distinction. And because it's in the book of Leviticus, we start to understand that he's definitely to deal with his sanctuary at most. So it is about what is permissible according to God and what is not. Something clean can become holy. We anoint it, and once it is set apart for God's use, like a menorah, like I said to you guys on Shabbat, you have the menorah and you have a menorah. One was anointed by God and put in the Mishkan or into the temple, and that's only used for that. The others, really doesn't matter, because it's a menorah, it's a lamp, that's all it is. Don't use the menorah in your house. That belongs to God's house. Okay, you see the difference? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, that's like using holy or clean? Holy. Right? What's the difference between me using a 2-ply tissue to blow my nose or using this? Oh, my book is clean or unclean?
Very much unclean.
Why are they unclean? Where does it say in the Torah that your book is unclean?
Will be unclean.
No, you're making the holy common. There's a difference. Okay? We have an issue with that, right? You're not going to use your Bible to make use of this issue. You don't take it something that's holy and you make it common, do something for common purpose. Okay? So we understand that there is a hierarchy of things. But if something that is holy becomes defiled, that becomes unclean, and then we have to cleanse it, and then we have to anoint it again to set it apart. If it's possible. Otherwise it just gets tossed. Right? Okay. So the reason I took you all through that is now, ladies, once a month we have a problem. Okay, does that mean you're not allowed to touch a Bible? Why not? But you're unclean.
But I never watched. But it's like how Yeshua, when he touched unclean people, he made it.
No. He was an offering. He was Yeshua, so he rendered it clean. Are you like him?
No.
So therefore, if it comes to the cycle of the month, should you come to fellowship?
Yes.
Why? You're unclean.
No, but that's like saying, because I'm unclean, I can't be in the presence of God.
No.
It's just a temporary uncleanness.
I don't understand this part.
We have a modern era, it's not the same. We
Isn't
have
it?
things that keeps us clean.
No, it doesn't. Still
Cleaner
something-
than me.
Still something about blood that is the problem.
Okay.
And remember, we need to put it in its context, right? We know during that cycle is how God put it into position that you would obviously be able to have babies, right? Part of that cycle. But it is because of what that you have this emission of blood. Don't give me the biological reference, give me the Genesis reference.
A broken state we are in.
The brokenness, but because of Eve's curse, you will have pain during childbirth. So what is God trying to tell you? I'm reminding you of the sin that got you into this broken state. Remember, you will redeem yourself by bringing life into the world. Isn't that what Scripture teaches? Right? But you're going to be doing it painfully. Why? Because God has been suffering every day watching His children die. Now, we will get to a place where you need to understand something. If I touch something unclean, that renders me unclean, right? Okay, right. How many of you petted Max on the way in?
Yeah.
Right, Max is an unclean animal, yes? So therefore you are unclean. Right. So therefore you cannot read your Bible and therefore we have a problem. But last time I checked, how many of you chew the gut? What type of unclean animal are you? Now you see, humans fluctuate at times between being in a clean state and an unclean state. But we need to understand that it is temporary, number one. Number two, this has to do with Mishkan worship. Why was the lady with the hemorrhage who was bleeding not taken out and put outside of the lepers?
That's, well, she was just unclean, so she couldn't go to temple.
Why? So it was only stopping her when it went to temple. It would be, when we get to the state, because we don't really understand that it was a Levitical idea, is that we get to the state of, my wife gives me children. I'm not allowed to touch her. She's, depending on the child, unclean for a son, or 40 days. Right? I'm not allowed to touch her. Now, if I do not kiss my wife, when she just went through all of that to give me children, do you think I would be doing a good husband thing or a bad husband thing? Bad husband thing, right? Because I am not going up into Mishkan. I'm not going up to temple. That doesn't mean that I cannot pray. Okay? It means that God will make a distinction. Remember, the rabbis taught, and we have scriptural backup in many cases, if you speak anything except sweat and tears, you are in an unclean state. So therefore you would mikvah before you went up. So even if you had to go to temple, when you got to Jerusalem, before you went up to worship, you would mikvah and then you would go up. Right? Okay? So when it comes to the points like this, you will not defile your neighbor's wife. Well, that's generally an unkosher thing anyway. Or touch a woman during her time of menstrual impurity. The verse that you're looking back to is not just touching a woman. And he is not sleeping with her during the time of her cycle. Fine. Okay? Ezekiel understood that you're going back to, and you're looking at Leviticus, from Leviticus 17, right the way through to 20. I think it's 20 verse 10. It talks about a lady in that time. And you are not to go near her, as in to know her intimately during the time of the cycle. Right? That's what he's talking about. Not just touching a person, or giving a person a hug, or rendering them in a state of such uncleanliness that they should fear to pray or read scripture. But if you're in an unclean state, you will not go up to the temple. You will not worship in his house. Because that is a place that has been completely dedicated and completely set apart as holy. Okay? Are you guys with me?
Yeah.
Right. He doesn't wrong anyone. He returns any pledged property. Any pledged property a debtor has given as collateral for a loan. Okay, so if I pledge something, Torah talks about if I'm poor and I need $5 to buy a loaf of bread, and then I say, hold my only blanket that I own. But it's winter. I'm going to pay. Torah goes in and it says, you give that man his blanket back at night so that he will live. Have compassion on him. Okay? Why? Because he might freeze to death over a loaf of bread. Is his life worthless to you? Absolutely not. God says have compassion on him, because just as you were slaves and you understood that type of ill treatment, other people are coming to you and they want to see God. Right? He takes nothing by robbery, but gives his food to the hungry and clothing to those who need it. He neither demands nor accepts interest on a loan. He refrains from what is evil, and he judges honestly between one person and another. Judging, doesn't accept bribes, doesn't care for the person's status, all of those things. In short, he lives according to my laws and observes my rulings, so as to act faithfully. Such a person is righteous, and he will certainly live, says Adonai Elohim. So you're in Babylon, but if you act according to my Torah, I'm not going to judge you, I'm going to judge you as righteous. You will be righteous, and that's that. Now suppose he is a father of a son who is a robber, a murderer, or does any of these things to a brother, whereas the father himself does none of them. He eats on the mountains, defiles his neighbor's wife, wrongs the poor and the needy, takes by robbery, doesn't restore pledged property, raises eyes towards idols, engages in disgusting practices, demands and accepts interest. Should he live? He will not live because he has engaged in all these disgusting practices. He must be put to death. His blood is on him. He's acting like the world does. Don't think that he's going to be able to come to home. He's not going to be able to come back to Israel. He will die where he is. There's judgment. Sin causes death. Right? Does sin cause death immediately?
No.
No. Yeah, sometimes it depends, right? If you get caught in the act of adultery, then it causes death faster than most. Yeah. But now, suppose he has a son who sees all the sins his father has committed, thinks about them and behaves differently. He doesn't eat on mountains, he raises his eyes to idols in the house of Israel, defiles his neighbor's wife, wrongs others, keeps pledged property or takes by robbery, but gives his food to the hungry and clothing to those in need of it. He refrains from oppressing the poor, and he neither demands nor accepts interest. He obeys my rulings and lives according to my laws. So he will not die for his father's sins, but will surely live. Yet his father, because he has oppressed so cruelly, committed robbery against his brother, and never did anything good among his people, he will die for his sins. So you start to see the context of the proverb in the beginning. You ask, why doesn't the son bear his father's guilt? When the son has done what is lawful and right, has kept all my laws and obeyed them, he will certainly live. The person who sins is the one that will die. The son is not to bear his father's guilt with him, nor is the father to bear the son's guilt with him. But the righteousness of the righteous will be his own, and the wickedness of the wicked will be his own. However, if the wicked person repents of all the sins he committed, keeps my laws and does what is lawful and right, then he will certainly live, and he will not die. None of the transgressions he has committed will be remembered against him, for the righteousness that he has done, he will live. Do I take any pleasure at all in having the wicked person die? As Adonai Elohim. Wouldn't I prefer that he turn from his ways and live? His heart is that everyone will have eternal life. Who chooses not to have eternal life? Whose choice is it?
The wicked.
The person.
Yeah.
Your choice. You can choose to follow God and receive blessing, or do the opposite of what he told you and be cursed. What is the difference between a biblical curse and blessing? Life and death, but there's something more. Right, a curse pushes you away from him. How many of you have went to a stage when you've backslid and then you were extremely close to him at one stage, were reading your Bible, were focused on him, were sitting there at his feet, were really hearing from him. Then you start to slowly slip down by the wayside and you get to a place where you pray and there's silence. You don't even know what the point of the Gospels were anymore. You read and you can't, or someone asks you, where did Yeshua say this, or if he said that, or what do you think about this? And 6 months ago, you had the answer. You knew it. And now you can't remember it. How close do you feel to God at that time? Not very. right? You need to understand that that curse is you walking away from Him. And because He is the thing that gives blessing, draws you near, allows you into a relationship with Him, gives you the opportunity to have eternal life, you get to choose whether you want that or not. And I've said it to you guys a million times before. Your behavior dictates, tells me which choice you've made. It is how you act that defines for me whether it's important or not. How many of you guys believe that food's really important in your life? Yeah, pretty much everybody, right? If you don't have it after a Yom Kippur fast, you're very happy when you eat again. How many of you that don't have mommies and daddies and that to go shop, but even if you ask the question, how many of you make a point to go get food, whether it's in the fridge, in the cupboard, or in the shops? Yeah, pretty much everybody, right? If I can understand that food will sustain me and will keep me healthy and will give me life, if I don't eat it, I die. How many of you actively go to search for God during the day? As much time as you eat? You see, we will sometimes go into strict eating plans and we will eat 6 times a day, but you won't pray 6 times a day. And you will see the benefits of your healthy plan, and you will see it flow into your body, and you will think, this is fantastic. But you will negate the thing that will give you true life. We need to take stock every now and again. We get so stuck in the worldly functions that we forget about all the stuff that we do. That's why Yom Kippur comes around every year, because your life revolves around food. It doesn't revolve around God. You care more about what movie you're going to watch or what you're going to be doing that night, or how many chapters you're going to read your Bible. How many levels of games you get past. What your friends think of you. Or your parents are. We have many excuses. But He says, "Here we prefer it if you turn from your ways and live." On the other hand, when the righteous person turns away from his righteousness and commits wickedness, by acting in accordance with all these disgusting practices that the wicked person does, will he live? None of the righteous deeds he has done will be remembered. For the trespasses and the sins he has committed, he will die. Guys, listen to me. That's a dangerous verse right there. You who know more will be judged more harshly. For the people in this fellowship, you have a high calling, you have a big responsibility, you have been given knowledge and giftings so that you can better reflect it. And if you don't, you will become like Capernaum. Now, in the end, would it be better for Sodom and Gomorrah or for Capernaum? People that sodomized, who hurt people, who beat people because they didn't have money. And the people that had Yeshua in their midst, saw miracles and didn't turn. They weren't doing the things of Sodom and Gomorrah. But yet they will be judged more harshly. The more you know about Him, the more He expects it. And I'm sorry to say, in this fellowship, what you've been given, what I've been given, is a lot more than a lot of people learn in their entire life. I don't want to sound arrogant, but what God has done in my life and what He's been giving you, people out there just simply don't know. They've been studying for years and they don't see it. The disciples were judged more harshly because they were given the secrets of the kingdom of heaven. If we are to be unpacking those things and we understand them, you're going to be held to account. So now you say, otherwise way isn't fair. Listen, house of Israel, It is my way that is listen, house of Israel. It is my way that is unfair, or your ways that are unfair. When a righteous person turns away from his righteousness and commits wickedness, he will die for it. For the wickedness he commits, he will die. And then the wicked person turns away from all the wickedness he has committed and does what is lawful and right, he will save his life. He will save his life. Because he thinks it over and repents of all the transgressions he committed. He will certainly live and not die. There's an important thing there. Repent for all the transgressions he committed. Remember, it starts with confession. Anything starts with confession. Why? Right. But if you hear it coming out of your own mouth, that means you must believe it. So when you get baptized, you make a confession that you believe Yeshua is the Messiah, right? I heard it come from your mouth, it will come from mine. I didn't say it, you did. So look like it. If you have sinned, you say, I have done this. No one else did it. You did it. You're the problem. And that's when you can ask God to change you so you can become more than you ever thought possible. That's His promise. He says, just hand it over. Sin is a wall, literally a strong fence that separates me and Him. I build it. He doesn't. He's got the sledgehammer on the other side. Remember, an offering, a kapara, means to draw near to God. How do I draw near to God? By telling Him how much I need. I made that mistake. No one else thought that I did. No one else said that I did. No one else did that I did. It wasn't peer pressure, it wasn't my work conditions, it wasn't whatever. We will justify ourselves out of our socks to try and say why it was okay the way we acted. God knows your heart, and He sees the circumstances, and He sees you reacting to a situation. Who's in control of you? Your situation or you? Right. So you can choose to serve Him, or you can choose not. Yet the house of Israel says, Adonai's way isn't fair. The house of Israel. Oh wait, I just read that. No,
Yeah.
the way isn't fair. The house of Israel is my ways that are unfair, or way always are unfair. For the house of Israel, I will judge each one according to his ways, says Adonai, let him repent and turn themselves away from all the transgressions, so that they will not be a stumbling block that brings guilt upon you. Throw far away from yourselves all your crimes that you committed, and make yourselves a new heart and a new spirit. For why should you die why should you die, house of Israel? New heart, new spirit? He's talking about that new covenant, right? The renewed covenant that's coming. Or started and yet will be fulfilled. Jeremiah 31, if you guys want to look at that, and also Ezekiel 36. I take no pleasure in the death of anyone who dies, says Adonai Elohim, so turn yourselves around and live. God Himself is pleading to a people to stop doing what they're doing. Like I said, a parent watching their child run into a wall time and time again, hurting themselves, gets down on their knees and begs for that child to stop. Because it's not the kid or the child who's going to bury themselves. It's the parent who has to bury the child. That's what we're doing, right? Same way you can flip it up at a parent that doesn't want to listen. Who's the one left crying about the dog? Chapter 19. Moreover, raise a lament for the leaders of Israel. Say, what a mother you had, a lioness among lions. Okay, so when we start talking about, we're dealing with leadership now, and a leadership that is equated to a lion. What does a lion represent scripturally?
Strength.
Not just strength, royalty. Which tribe had the emblem of a lion?
Judah.
Judah. Who was in charge at the time of of whose lineage was sitting on the throne before the destruction of the temple in 586? Huh? 586, Judah, but who in Judah was king? No, I'm talking about the first king. The first king of Israel came from the tribe of Benjamin. Saul, right? And then the second king of Israel was a little ginger kid from the tribe of Judah who was born in Bethlehem. He? David. Huh? Right? So, it's an interesting thing. Right? So you sit there and you have David's lineage showing on the throne. And what do we know about Judah's promise in Genesis 49? The scepter will not pass. They are a royal tribe. It's the line of the tribe of Judah. Okay? Then we go into David's lineage. What's it? 1 Samuel 7 or 2, I think it's 1 Samuel 7, where it talks about David's covenant. The house will stand. Right? 2 Samuel 7. God's house and David's house will stand just as long as they follow Torah. Is God telling you that everybody's following Torah? No, but we are dealing with the king or someone, Judah, the lioness, who is going to bring forth life. She laid down among young lions and reared her cubs. One of her cubs was she singled out. He became a young lion. He learned to seize prey. He became a man-eater. Now let's think about it from a king's perspective. If you describe a king as a man-eater, you know bad thing. Hey, why? Who's he preying on?
These people. These people.
Right, his own people. He's destroying. He's not defending his territory. He's not protecting his pride. He's not feeding them the way he should. He knows how to catch prey, but he goes after the lazy, easy targets, which are his own. The nation sounded an alarm against him, and he was caught in their pit. With hooks, they dragged him off to the land of Egypt. Who was dragged off? That was from the line of David, who was dragged off to Egypt. No. Ezekiel stood up against the Syrian army, and God intervened in 185,000 Syrians. Jehoahaz. Okay? You're looking at 2 Kings 23, verse 31 to 34. He was exiled, remember? Josiah went out against Necho. Necho said, God, come out. Josiah brought in religious reform. He said, God, come out, my quarry and mine, not my quarry. My issue is not with you. Stay where you are and let me pass. Josiah didn't listen, went out and he got there. His son gets exiled by Necho. Right? So Jehoahaz, son of Josiah, gets exiled in 609 BC. 2 Kings 23, verse 31 to 34. Okay? When she saw that she had been thwarted, that her hope was lost, she took another of her cubs and made a young lion of him. He prowled among the lions, grew to be a young lion, learned to seize prey, and he became a man-eater. Same pattern. He raped their widows and destroyed their cities, the land and all that were appalled at the sound of his roaring. So someone that was well hated. The nation set a snare for him. From the provinces all around, they spread their net over him, and he was caught in their pit with hooks. They put him in a cage, and they brought him to the king of Babel, to imprison him in a fortress, so that his roar would be heard no more on the mountains of Israel. Now, there's 2 possibilities. He said the one that was put into power after Jehoahaz was King Jehoiakim. He was put in place by Necho. Now his son Jehoiakim was taken off to Babylon. 2 Kings 24, verses 8 to 17. So it could be an allusion to 2 kings at this place. Yeah, Jehoiakim and Jehoiakim. Your mother was like a strong grapevine planted by water. It was fruitful and luxuriant. Because of the abundant water, it had strong branches. Oh wait. Yeah. This kind of alludes to Babylon as well as this next one. To be used as a scepter by rulers, besides having thick foliage, it grew taller and taller until its height was noticed, but its mass of branches. But it was a thorn on top of its fury, it flung on the ground. The east wind withered her fruit. Now the east wind is normally referenced as a francine, a desert storm, talks about judgment or God's power. The strong branches were broken off, they dried up, and the fire consumed the vine. It had been transplanted to the desert, to a dry, thirsty land. Fire has gone out from its own branches, burning up its fruit, so that now it has no strong branch to be a ruler's scepter. Taking you back to Judah's promise. I believe this last king, who was caught in the desert trying to flee his people, who led them into rebellion and war, was Zedekiah. Okay. The lamentation became very well known. So Zedekiah's arrogance led his nation into battle and brought destruction. Any questions so far? What happened? 2 chapters in 20 minutes? Not too bad. Alright, happy with chapter 20. Now chapter 20 is basically like a retell of Israeli history. So he's going to go on and he's going to start on where I found you, what you did, and it's basically going to take the story of the sin cycle of Judges, and then they're going to go through it over and over and over again. Okay? On the 10th day of the 5th month of the 7th year, 10 represents?
Completion.
No. Covenant. 10 words, the Decalogue came into the covenant. In the 5th, what does 5 represent? Torah generally. And in the 7th year? Completion. So, if we're going to take the illusion, it's going to be hitting the nail on the head with covenant, Torah, and completion. Let's see if we're correct. Some of the leaders of Israel came to consult Adonai and sat with me. Alright, so what do we notice here? Who came to sit with Ezekiel? The leaders of Israel. Do they recognize Ezekiel as a prophet? Have to. If they want to consult Adonai, you go to a prophet. Okay, now they want to know what he has to say. Remember, this is after Jeremiah and all the things that have been saying the same thing. The word of Adonai came to me, human beings, speak to Israel's leaders, tell them that Adonai Elohim asks, have you come to consult me? As I live, says Adonai Elohim, I swear that I will not let you consult me. He doesn't want to enter into a conversation. Are you going to judge them, human being? Are you going to judge them? Then have them realize how disgusting their ancestors' practices were. Tell them that Adonai Elohim says this, back on the day when I chose Israel, I raised my hands to the descendants of the house of Yaakov. I revealed myself to them in the land of Egypt. And when I raised my hand to them and said, I am Adonai your God. The word Adonai there should be in full caps, yes? Alright, so what do you know when you see Adonai in full caps or Lord in full caps?
Refers to other gods.
No. That refers to you there. Okay? It's interesting there that he says, when I revealed myself to the land, in the land of Egypt, and I held out my hand to them. Remember, it was in Exodus 3:14 that we discussed the name of God. And he says, Moses says, who must I say sent me? Under whose authority? Under what's your name? And he says, Iyeh. And he says, sent me. And what does Iyeh mean again? I will be what I will be. Right? So, he uses that point of revelation and he says, I am Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your God. On the day I raised my hand to them, pledging to bring them out of the land of Egypt into a land I had reconnoitered for them. Who reconnoitered the land? But who said yeah? Who reconnoitered for them?
You probably did.
God went ahead of them. He knew the land he had chosen for them. It was a land that he chose for them, a land flowing with milk and honey. the most beautiful of all lands. I told them, each of you will throw away the detestable things that draw your eyes. Do not defile yourself with the idols of Egypt. I am Adonai your God. Again, you have God. But they rebelled against me and wouldn't listen to me. They did not, each of them, throw away the detestable things which drew their eyes, and they did not abandon the idols of Egypt. Then I said, I will pour out my fury on them and spend my anger on them there in the land of Egypt. But concerns for my own reputation kept me from letting it be profaned in the sight of the nations among whom they were living, in the sight of whom I have made myself known to them, in order to bring them out of the land of Egypt. So, what's the first cycle? What do you see? God shows up. They refuse to listen. God wants to smite them. God doesn't, because nations are going to say, you could not do it. Your name will be profaned. They will think you're too weak. But for your name's sake, carry on. And he did. So I had them leave the land of Egypt and brought them into the desert. I gave them my laws. Right? So because of a covenant, remember the first 10, he brought them out of Egypt. The next one, he's giving his Torah, which is the 5th. He gave them my laws and showed them my rulings. If a person obeys them, he will have life through them. It's life for you. I gave them my Shabbat, my Shabbatot, as a sign between me and them, so that they would know that I am, or that I, Adonai, am the one who makes them holy. Interesting. So he gives you covenant. Well, let's look at the cycle here. He goes, Torah equals what to you? Life. Okay? And life led you to Shabbat, which was a relationship or a covenant, right? The sign of the covenant. Okay? Into that relationship. Which will make you holy. Okay? That's what he breaks down. Okay, so he gives you a cycle of how he brings you into his holiness. Be holy for I am holy. Again, tying with the theme of the chapter before.
Sorry, that ties in how the chapter starts with the numbers 5 and 7.
Yes.
Relates directly to that.
Absolutely. Because the point of his condition is to have everything set up for him, right? And he's not even one that has to be holy. Right? So you will have the covenant that started everything. I came out because of Israel, the seed of Yaakov. So that already tells you about the covenant start, which led us into Torah 10, 5, and his purpose and his plan was all praise. Right. Okay. But the house of Israel rebelled against me in the desert. They did not live by my laws, and they rejected my rulings, but which if a person does, he will have life. Through them, moreover, they greatly profaned my Sabbaths, my Shabbats. And then I said I would pour out my fury on them in the desert in order to destroy them, but concern for my own reputation kept me from letting it be profaned in the sight of the nations, who had seen when I brought them out. Then I also raised my hand and I swore to them in the desert, I would not bring them into the land I was giving them, a land flowing with milk and honey, the most beautiful of all lands, because they had rejected my rulings, did not live by my laws, and profaned my Shabbats, since their hearts went after the idols. However, I spared them from complete destruction. I did not completely finish them off in the desert. And again, he points out that all of this is a heart condition. But again, there were a few that listened, so he kept a remnant.
But funny enough, he's also pointing out that the parents who sin die, but the kids were in that environment created by that sin. But he didn't judge the kids, they didn't carry on.
Right.
Through.
Absolutely. But the children too rebelled against me. That's right, because you're looking at generation and children. They did not live by my laws or observe my rulings to obey them, which if a person does, he will have life by them. And they profane my Shabbats. Then I said, I will pour out my fury on them and spend my anger on them in the desert. Nevertheless, I withdrew my hand and allowed concern for my own reputation to keep me from letting it be profaned in the sight of the nations who had seen when I brought them out. I also raised my hand and I swore to them in the desert, I would scatter them among the nations and disperse them throughout through the countries, because they hadn't obeyed my rulings and they rejected my laws and profaned my Shabbats, and their eyes had turned toward their fathers' idols. I also gave them laws which did them no good and rulings by which they did not live. Torah is only good for you if you do it. And I let them become defiled by their own gifts, their own sacrifices, their own stuff, in that they offered up their firstborn sons so that I could fill them with revulsion, so that they would finally realize that I am who they are. I'm a sheep. Okay? So again, what was the cycle that you keep on seeing? God comes in, yeah, it's on cycle. Takes that step, gives them relationship, gives them holiness, gives them love, gives them himself, and then they reject the Torah, they reject the Shabbats, and then they forget what does holiness mean if I don't have Torah, if I don't have Sabbath. Remember sanctification, and you will notice that there are two conditions here that have to deal with this hard condition. Is going to take us to something Yeshua said. But before we get to Yeshua, what's the first commandment? No, the first. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Right? So, he's the only one. The next one has to do with the greatest. The greatest one is Shema. Shema Israel. There is only one God, right? And he is Echad. So, I'm just going to go, I am. Alright? Shema, same statement. Next section it goes into Daniel. What is the one that's likened to it or hinges on it? Daniel language about yourself. Right? Everything has to do with heart condition. Just when you look at Torah, just like when we looked at the first 4 mitzvot in the 10 Commandments, have to deal with what? Relationship with God. And the next 6? Between people. If you look at the order of the sins in chapter 19, it takes us to exactly the same thing. Starts off with worship, and then it goes to people. If you don't do it because of Him and how you worship Him, you're not going to be a carer of anybody else. You don't care if you get someone else in trouble. You want to do what you want to do. You don't want to care what your consequences of your sin are. It's going to affect everybody, but it's okay, it's only about you, right? But that's what we think until we have to pick up the pieces. Your sin affects your entire family and affects this entire flesh. Right? Just like every decision I make affects my life, affects my children, affects my work, and affects this fellowship. You don't get off scot-free. It's not just about you anymore. But the worst thing is that we don't realize is that our sin reflects God. If I'm walking around saying, I am a believer, I'm Torah observant, I follow God, I am a disciple, I am here. And you do something contrary to the word, you're telling everybody else that it's okay with your God. Or you're telling them that it doesn't really matter what you do. Because what you say and what you do are two completely different things, and He's not going to smack you anyway. So if you're not scared of Him, then why should I be scared of Him? If you're not reverent, why should I be reverent? Like I said, When you do marriage counseling, one of the first things you say is you never run down your wife. And you don't let anybody else run down your wife. Why? Because if I run her down, or if I let my friends run her down, right? What am I telling other people?
It's okay.
That it's okay to run her down. Same way it works with husbands. If I keep on calling my son-in-law and I start running him down the entire time, then other people are going to say, well, but what? You do it. And you're his dad. That's what the kid is going to look at me and he goes, well, that's all you think of me. Your wife is going to look at you and you go, well, if that's what you think of me. Your God is going to look at you and he goes, well, if that's what you think of me. We were never in a relationship. You never chose life. You never loved me. You never kept my sign or my seal. In that relationship of holiness, man, well, you just throw that out the window because you don't care. You just don't care. You see, holiness and righteousness is something that is given to you, that are offered to you, but you still have to choose it. You can be covered by Messiah's righteousness, but you have to believe in Messiah before you're declared righteous. You have a choice. You have an active part in the relationship. But the same as holiness. It says, be holy for I am holy. So that means I can't run around eating things that are not clean or unclean. Right? If I run around eating things that are unclean, I don't care about holiness. I don't care about being set apart to God. My sin means nothing. It's an outward symbol where the heart is not there, and that's exactly what Yeshua was saying when he spoke against the Pharisees. I see all the foliage, I see all the part of the vine, I see everything, but the fruit of it is just nothing. Change. God's screaming for change. No, where was it? Yeah. Therefore, human beings speak to the house of Israel and tell them that Adonai Elohim says, moreover, your ancestors blasphemed me by breaking faith with me still another way. For after I brought them into the land which I raised my hand to pledge to give to them, they noticed all these high hills and leafy trees and offered their sacrifices. They made offerings and they provoked my anger. They sent out their sweet aromas and they poured out their drink offerings. And I asked them, this high place which you are going to, what is the meaning of it? They gave the name Bama, which retains to this day. To go to a high point. Now remember, he's sitting over there and he's talking about idol worship underneath the trees, sweet aromas, talks about incense, talks about offerings, drink offerings that poured out, libations. These things in Ezekiel's mind are temple. And now you're worshipping in them. You're worshipping in, remember, green leafy trees already tells you fertility cult. Okay? So tell the house of Israel that Adonai Elohim says, you are defiling yourselves in the same way as your ancestors, following their abominations and fornicating with them. And when offering your gifts, you make your children pass through fire and defile yourselves with your idols. To this day. So I'm supposed to allow you to consult me, house of Israel. It's a really long way just to say no. But if I remind you of all your sin, maybe you will realize and take stock and realize how far you've sinned. Maybe then you will take accountability. Maybe then you will take responsibility for your own work. And saying, you know what, God, you're absolutely right. Have any of you done anything that deserves eternal life? No. What do you deserve? Every single one of us have the same story. So if God decided to die for you anyway, so that He could stop you, change you, and give you a second shot, should you try and kick Him in the teeth and say, right, I want the eternal life part, but I'm not going to change? He said, this time, You see Yeshua dying on a tree for you and you go, yeah, that's cool and everything, but yeah, I'm just going to carry on doing what I want to do. And if you walk that wall and you don't understand why your relationship with God is a bit fuzzy. Shabbat is just something you do. Well, is it really life being cooped up in all these laws? Well, it's not really Torah, is it? I mean, come on. Which covenant are we talking about? Slowly but surely, we start to nullify everything that's supposed to set us apart. And we start to do this. We take our heart out of it completely. I said to you guys before, I've had many discussions with people telling me that I don't have to keep Torah. Now I can go and I can prove through Scripture that it actually is applicable. But that's never my go-to. My go-to is, okay, well, but why wouldn't you want to? If this pleases him, if this brings a smile to his face, what was the last thing you gave him? A death sentence. You killed him. Do you mind if I let that sink in just for a little second? He died because of your sin. He was separated from the Father because of your sin. He was alone on that tree because of your sin. So why wouldn't you want to make him smile after everything you do? Why wouldn't you want to spend the rest of your life trying to make it up to him? Because he took a beating so you don't have to. He died so that you don't have to. Don't ever take this gift of life for granted. Don't ever think that it's just, well, that's just God, so I can do whatever I want and I can say sorry tomorrow. We don't know how many sorries and how many tomorrows you got. You might find yourself in Babylon and ask a very different question. And that's what you have in mind when you say we will be like the nations, we will be like the Goyim, like the families of the other countries, serving wood and stone. Will certainly not happen. As I live, says Elohim, I swear that surely with a mighty hand, with a stretched out arm, and with poured out fury, I myself will be king over you. God himself will be king. He's going to restore it before the time of Shaul. When is this going to happen or take in its fullness? When the Shaul comes. I will bring you out from the peoples and gather you out of your countries where you were scattered with a mighty hand, with stretched out arms and with poured out fury. Then I will bring you into the desert of the peoples and judge you face to face when Yeshua comes. Just as I pledged your ancestors in the desert of the land of Egypt, so I will judge you, says Adonai Elohim. I will make you pass under the brook and bring you into the obligations of my covenant. I will change your heart. I will rid you of the rebels who are in revolt against me. I will bring them out from the land which they are living, and they will not enter the land of Israel. Then you will know that I am not alone. As for you, house of Israel, here is what Adonai Elohim says. Go on serving your idols, every one of you, but afterwards I swear that you will listen to me. And you will no longer profane my holy name with your gifts and with your idols. For on my holy mountain, the high mountain of Israel, says Adonai Elohim, the whole house of Israel, all of them will serve me in the land. I will accept them there. And there I will require your contributions, your best gifts, and all the consecrated things. I will accept you with your sweet aroma when I bring you out from the peoples and gather you out of your countries where you were scattered. and through you I will manifest my holiness in the sight of all the nations. That's a millennial reign promise. There will be a regathering. It's already happened. The land of Israel did not exist before 1948. There was a 2,000-year gap where that prophecy was waiting to be fulfilled. 1967, we could go back to Jerusalem. That is a place for people who want to be in relationship with Him. It's not a tourist destination. You will know that I am Adonai when I bring you into the land of Israel, into the country which I pledged by raising my hand to give to your ancestors. Then you will remember your behavior and all the things you did which you defiled yourselves. And you will loathe yourselves for the evils you committed. You will know that I am Adonai when I have dealt with you in a manner that preserves my reputation and not according to the evil ways and corrupt actions. To your evil ways and corrupt actions, house of Israel, says Adonai. He is not going to do it your way. Why? Because when man gets involved with God's plan, we normally get in the way. But His ways are higher than our ways. But remember, His ways are your blessings. His way is your best. All you have to do is choose it. Each and every day. Guys, you will hear this a lot, and you will struggle with this a lot. Every day is a choice. Every day is a choice to do it. You have an opportunity to do it better than you did it yesterday. And there are going to be ups and there are going to be downs. Those of you who are doing this for a while know this. But when you look back, God willing, you will see growth. And the things you used to struggle with in the beginning, if you're struggling with things right now, a year from now, God willing, those things won't be a problem for you. Like I said, in the beginning of the walk, of my walk, sitting in a pub was a problem. Now I can sit there without any inkling of any problem and stay away from alcohol. It doesn't make me whatsoever. But now I have different struggles. I have different things that I have to conquer, and I have to ask God to show me and help me and grow me. And I have learned over time that when I acknowledge where I'm weak, and I lift it up and I ask Him to change me because I don't want to be that man, I know that He's faithful and He will. Messiah put it this way, your will be done. His plan for your life, His calling for your life, and His goal for your life. That's the best plan. The seed had to die, go into the ground, so that it could bring forth more seed. When a fruit gets forth and sinks into the ground, it brings forth another tree. Of course, who Yeshua's death, the biggest harvest is still coming. You're part of that harvest if you choose to. Any questions, any thoughts? Oh, happy anniversary. Thanks very much for that. Cheers. Right, bedtime is every time. This will be your last Wednesday for the year. You can go and make a prize every day.
John, hold the hands, I'll be outside the camp.
Where you guys are, it's fine. Alright, show me the breakfast.
Heavenly Father, I thank you that we can come here and fellowship with you, my Father. Lord, I thank you so much that you are showing us the way we need to walk. I thank you, Father, that you give us the word. And may those words fill our minds and our hearts, Father, so that we can always meditate upon them and remember them, Father. Lord, I thank you for your covenant that you've given us, and thank you for the life that you've given us, Father. I know it's hard sometimes, but Lord, thank you that you remind us that you pour out your love upon us every single day. Mothers, those that could not be here, I ask you to be with them. I ask you to guide them and lead them. And Father, as we break this fellowship, Father, I pray that you be with every one of us, Father. For I know that it is hard sometimes, Father, we forget just to spend 5 minutes with you, Father, even one. Father, forgive us if we do this. And just lead us, Lord, as your word leads us. And thank you, Father, for everything you do for us. In Yeshua's name. Amen.